one of the big reasons that I'm out here being targeted the way that I am is because Tards put a camera in my eye. Yeah, they did. They put a camera in my eye, and they get to watch me get undressed, and they get to watch me use the bathroom all day. Every time that happens, they get to watch me deal with my moon time, and they get to watch me do everything. They get to watch everything that I say or write. And they get to watch me enter my passwords to everything. And I don't even need passwords because everyone has access to my stuff. And sometimes everyone other than me has access to my stuff. They've done that lots of times too. Yeah. Having a camera in my eye blows. They like to have people prepare poisoned food and drop it off to me or invite me to eat it. And then they watch me eat their poisoned food and shit. And they're all like... And they have people do dumb shit almost every single day. They're acting like they're going to come out about it and let people know. They're acting like they're going to stop trying to eliminate me and assassinate me over it. And I just ate a salad. And they're acting like they're going to go public with it rather than just watching me pee and look in the mirror naked. Try to close my eye while I'm looking in the mirror naked sometimes. And then other times I'm just like, fuck it. Because they've been watching me for, I'm thinking, 15 years or longer. And really, it's the eye that they say that it's not in that I have the most trouble with. That has like really crazy pressure. So I think it's my left eye, but I'm not really sure. And I think it's just one eye, but it might be both. Yeah, it goes way beyond invasion of privacy. And like, I knew whenever they first mentioned it that it was true, but I still had to take the time to actually like process all of it. So it took me a while before I started to like wear an eye patch and stuff like that. And then sometimes by wearing the eye patch over the one eye, look, I've already got like a tan around where I was wearing an eye patch. It's horrible. And like, then the other eye that's supposed to not have the camera in it is all like red, and I have to cover it. And I have to, but really it's needed to be covered for the last like 15 years because it's been like in super crazy pain. And rather than anyone suggesting that, and you know, of course, nobody's going to suggest that you wear an eye patch to cover up one or both of your eyes if you have a camera in it. So like, you know, they had to all pretend that nothing was wrong. There's nothing there. There's nothing there, and there's nothing wrong, and you just have some swelling, and it's idiopathic intracranial hypertension, which means that nobody knows why. It's just an anomaly. Just overnight, after all this other shit, just overnight, you suddenly wake up with a crazy pain in the back of your head and your eye, and you're like going blind every 5 minutes, and you feel like you can't breathe anymore. And like they kind of did a lot. They did a lot. It's a lot more that they did a lot more than just injecting a nano camera into my eye. That is a pretty major thing that they've done, but they did way worse than that even. I mean, that's really bad, but that's pretty bad. But also doing like neurosurgery on someone while they're unaware or unconscious, and then like making sure that they're really not taken care of afterwards properly. It was literally like the whole reason they did it was just to be cruel. Yeah, like nothing's wrong with you. Yeah. They couldn't even give me painkillers for what they did. They couldn't even give me painkillers for what they did to me, because if I took painkillers with my brain swelling and weird stuff that they'd done to me, I would just immediately start getting sick. And, or I don't know, maybe they were doing something to the painkillers to make it to where I would get sick. But they made it to where there was no relief for anything that they did, as far as any of that stuff goes. If the eye camera injection happened at any other time, people are going to have to like prove that to me piece by piece and step by step. Like I will be cross-examining things like that. And yeah, so I know I look rough. I am a super homeless person. I've been out here for years homeless. I spaned for money every day so that I can stay in this hotel room so that I don't have to worry about all the dumb stuff that people are sent to do to me, and so that I don't have to worry about any mad scientists or whoever injecting anything else into me, or surgically implanting anything, or organ harvesting from me, or any of those things. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so they did a few different things, I guess. They have an AI implant injection. They have that Neuralinked chip. They have a nanoplasma protein injection that they put in the eye that creates a camera. She says it's shaped like a something with a tail. And there's a few other things. There's something that binds the chakras. And then there are other chips that would have been like from back in the 80s or whatever. But Neuralink would be one of the companies that at least were involved in a few of these like implants or injections or whatever. At least be on a certain time frame. And there's been an extreme, so basically, because there's a camera in my eye and it's in a bunch of different people's eyes, Elon Musk sells the footage to different groups, elitists and other billionaires and world leaders and politicians and celebrities and people in my family. Different people have access. People even beyond them have access. People in China have access to it. It's apparently hackable, even some of it. And that people can, link into it and watch and listen in, I guess. So I was talking about how there's a trial that they don't want to come out. So one of the things that they've done over the years is they have deemed me incompetent in court behind my back. And apparently they've done this like multiple times throughout my life. And they would do this with like, they would record me, or they would take bits and pieces of recordings, or they would twist things in any ways they would go. They would show up to whatever court situation, and they would pretend to whoever this judge was that I was just like so messed up. I was laid up in bed, and so they got a judge to deem me incompetent. And then they were getting Social Security benefits for me, and they were sending the Social Security benefits to some offshore bank account along with annuity benefits, because apparently apparently I was connected to some kind of trust fund, and if I was married by a certain time and had 2 children, according to whatever this trust agreement was, then I would start receiving these annuity checks. So they got me in these false marriages, and they began to receive these annuity checks for me too, but they made sure that I had 2 kids first. So they hurried up and they made me have 2 kids really quickly, which took until I was 23. And to have my second kid. And then they hurried up and they got me into a fake marriage behind my back on paper. And I think they even had someone pose as me. And then they began to get annuity checks for me as well, in the sum of somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 a month. So in addition to the Social Security payments, they were getting annuity checks, and they were doing all kinds of stuff, and they were apparently sending all this stuff to an offshore bank account. I don't know if it's in Switzerland or whatever, but that was just like one of the weird things that they were doing. And so it's this constant theme that no matter what I do, where I am, where I go, what I say, that basically if I open my mouth online at all, I am attacked by people who insinuate that I'm crazy, that my family have me in care, that I need to be on disability. They make all these kind of comments, right? And it's absolutely disgusting to me, because these are the most abusive, heinous people on the planet. When I actually begin to explain to you guys the nastiness that these guys have done, the lengths and the levels that these people have gone to destroy my life and to actually try to make me crazy, go back and look at the video that I posted before this one, at the comment that was left. And they'll shadow ban me, they'll do all kinds of stuff, they'll leave all kinds of nasty messages underneath everything that it does every time that I open a YouTube channel, and even begin to say even just a little bit, they just have people post all this negative stuff. And it's all just people who are part of their offender cult. Yeah, their sex offender cult. And it doesn't bother me anymore the way that it used to. Like a year ago, 2 years ago, a few years ago, like I would have just been like fucking wanting to strangle somebody to death. But at this point, I know that if there's a comment on anything of mine, it's from an enemy, because no one else knows who I am. The only people who actually know who I am are all of these evil people, and they go way out of their way to send people to do nasty things to me, They will be however many thousand of miles away from me, and they will send people to me in the towns that I am in to do heinous, wicked fucking things to me. So leaving a little YouTube comment is nothing for them. And it's always gonna sound real fucking stupid, like the one that was made there. And I'm not gonna even respond to it. I'm just gonna leave it there for you guys to see how fucking stupid it is. Like, nobody who is just unbiasedly watching this video is just gonna leave some dumb ass fucking comment like that without fucking really knowing what the fuck is going on. But yes, I have had several psychological evaluations in my life. I did have a psychological evaluation a few years ago. I still had no signs of mental illness then. I'm still not mentally ill. Sorry. One thing that they did to try to make me crazy for their nasty little court hearing was they red-rummed some chicks, and they did it in a really severe and grotesque and gruesome way. So I don't appreciate you constantly doing this. That's one thing that as soon as I think about it, I do get upset about. Like, the lengths that they have gone to actually try to make me crazy, as far as hurting me and hurting other people in front of me. They've gone to extreme lengths, and they have hurt some innocent people really badly. And even if those people weren't innocent, they would never have deserved for anything like that to happen to them. Now, I could understand how other people would have experienced those things and absolutely lost their minds, because I actually did develop amnesia for a little while after you guys doing that. But it's absolutely sick that you're still allowed to this day, 3 years after you guys did that to me, they are still allowed to harass me like this, right in front of me and on YouTube and everywhere else, because everyone has to work for Elon Musk and Neuralink or whatever. Yeah. Everybody has to defend them, and everybody's so worried about getting this money and covering up their, like, very wicked offenses. Very wicked offenses. And you keep harassing me, keep leaving little comments. You guys made an attempt against me within the last week or two. I've just been paying this $75 a day to stay in this hotel so that I'm by myself and I don't have to deal with anybody. It's really horrible. I don't have a family because all of my family is going to go to prison for everything that they've done to me. So I'd appreciate you not inserting any comments about my family. I have some children that were stolen. We were trafficked by Elon Musk and all these other people involved in the situation, not just Elon Musk. And Elon Musk is not the only mad scientist, and Neuralink and eye cameras are not the only bad, scary tech that they're using. That's not the only nasty, scary thing that they're using and weaponizing. And I'm not trying to call one person out or one corporation out or another, and I don't think that it would ever be coincidence that you would come across my video because you were looking for something about Neuralink, okay? So, yeah, go ahead and leave your stupid comments because, yeah, I definitely want people to see how stupid this is. And I've been going through this my entire life. But the worst of it has been over the last few years of them trying desperately to make sure that I do not show up for a court hearing that does involve Neuralink and a bunch of different presidents and a whole bunch of people. And it's not just me that has an eye camera. It's other people too. But anyways, yeah, since you guys want to be leaving stupid comments on my stuff with your fake accounts, right back at you, buddy. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, it's kind of getting late, and I quit smoking. Oh yeah, I didn't quit smoking, but I quit vaping. So I quit nicotine today. I went all day long without nicotine, and I feel good about that. But I'm a little bit like blue. I'm a little bit blue, and I ordered a Cash App card, so hopefully I'll have that in like a week or two. And I don't know. I don't know what else to say. But yeah, I guess that was it. All right, so basically, I woke up in my ex-boyfriend's bed, and the blankets were like up over me the way that you would like fold them over all dorky if you were making a bed, or if like someone was in a coma or something like that and you just tucked them in or whatever. It was really bizarre. But I woke up technically on my ex-boyfriend's side of the bed, and I was like, all, and I heard my kids playing in the living room, and I tried to remember when it was that I had actually laid down last, and I wondered how long I had been there. And my boyfriend person at the time, was like sitting in a chair-ish situation over off to my side, and like right in front of his bathroom door. And he like hurried and got up and was like acting like, oh, don't try to get up so fast and all this. And he was like unusually attentive and doty for someone who like for like me just waking up. It was just really unusual. I did feel unusual. I knew that something had happened, and I was immediately like, did like people just perform some kind of surgery on me? Like, how long was I out? It seemed like something medical happened. I was wondering, I wondered what had happened with my kids while I was out, and like I said, how long I had been out. But within a certain amount of time, I would start to get really sick, sick in some really unusual ways. The first thing that really stood out to me was that the back of my head hurt really, really bad. The back of my head just was an excruciating pain. It was a pain that I could feel all the way around my head and just through my head, all into my eyes. I remember that my right eye hurt. It was really swollen to where it was like protruding from my head like a pug dog almost. It was so noticeable that even the other people around me would point it out. And they'd be like, man, your eye, looks really, really swollen, really sore. I would begin to lose my vision and like audio. I would just go through bouts of it where I wouldn't be able to see or hear anything. Like, everything would go dark. And then I would just kind of open my eyes and look out, and I would wait to see light again. And as I was looking out and everything was dark, I would kind of gradually lose my audio. I wouldn't be able to hear anything. And then it would get down to just hearing my own heart beating. and I would listen to my heartbeat, and then I would listen to my heartbeat slow down, slow way down, and then I would listen to my heart stop. And so I would just be standing there with my eyes wide open, and just in total darkness, completely conscious, listening, unable to hear or see anything. And then I would also, like I said, hear my heart stop. And I would wait, and eventually I would begin to hear my heartbeat again. And my heart rate and my heartbeat would, strengthen and pick back up a little bit more. And then the first thing I would hear was like, a little bit of like staticky sounds coming in. And it was like someone, maybe turning on a radio or a TV, one of the old ones, and you'd almost listen to it like power up and power down and stuff like that. Anyways, it was like the static, and it would kind of power up, power on, and you'd hear it it was like, something off in the distance that would just get gradually closer and louder to where you could actually hear clear, pretty clearly. And around the time that I would be able to hear very clearly again, my vision would sort of begin to, come back. And I would have to wait and just stand there and be patient and just look out and wait and watch and just breathe as well as I could. And it was kind of obvious to me that I had been Neuralinked. I even at the time was looking up the Neuralink device, and taking a look at it after being Neuralinked. They would have seen me, going through that in my history and everything, and potentially my boyfriend at the time would have been able to go through my phone and history and see that I was, looking at that device. And then, my right eye was swollen really bad, and I wondered, what would they have done with my eye that could have benefited them. And one of the things that I thought of was that they could have used the... Right. So I was saying that I was trying to think of a way that other people would be able to use one of my eyes to benefit themselves. Why was my eye swollen that badly? And I did think of, I did take into consideration that someone could be using my eye for the same reason that I use my eye, as a lens to see through. And this was the only thing that I could think of, the only way that they could benefit from using one of my eyes. And as far as Neuralinking me went, between what I imagine could possibly be going on between my eye and a potential neural implant, I began to understand that there could very well be, entire teams of scientists or potentially a lot of other people who would be sharing, my point of view with me, and they could also potentially have access to my thoughts, my physiology, whatever could be picked up about me. I understood that basically there could be a whole team of scientists in my head. I know that I would end up in the hospital a lot over what they did. They would start sending me to an ophthalmologist and a neurologist, and I was expected to make it to that bigger city away from my smaller, crappier city. Even though we were like completely broke poor, I was expected to every 2 weeks travel to this bigger city so that I would be seen for my eyes and for my brains. And mind you, the entire time all of this is going on, I know all of these people are lying to me. They diagnosed me with something called idiopathic intracranial hypertension, or IIH. It was also known as pseudotumor cerebri. And they've got like a lot of little Facebook groups and online groups and stuff for all of these mostly women who have intracranial hypertension. And, you know, idiopathic, meaning that they don't know why, when they sure as heck do know why. And at the very same time that all of this has begun to go on, all of this horribleness has begun to go on, I'm given an iPhone. And what I've begun to gather after all this time is that some of the tech that we are implanted with, it doesn't technically work all of it together the way that they want, and they're not able to map your brain and, you know, everything else that they need to, unless you have your phone in your face 24/7, basically. Unless you're on your phone. The way that James Martinez described it is that not all of the technology works for everything unless you basically have your phone in your face for 6 to 12 hours a day. You know, and that has to do with what I was talking about, like the DARPA, you know, brain mapping and different stuff like that, you know, and probably all kinds of stuff that I don't have, you know, any knowledge of or access to. I would see this ophthalmologist, and I would have to stick my head in this giant thing that it itself actually looked like an eyeball. It was pretty weird, and I'd have to hit this little button every time I would see these little dots. And what they were doing was they were creating a map of my vision loss. So these implants were basically destroying my vision. There was a lot of pressure against my skull and against my optic nerves. There would eventually be so much pressure that they will perform what's called a lumbar puncture or a spinal tap, which, you know what that means. They're going to stick a big giant needle into your spine and pull out some of your spinal fluid. But anyways, they were mapping my blindness, basically. They were, you know, trying to show how quickly I was going to go blind from what they did. You know, I was telling you about those spells of everything going dark and, you know, me losing my everything, you know, everything but my consciousness. I would lose. I would go through bouts of it. And it was only when this shit began. I was so sick at some point. My ex took me home where my kids and my brother were. I would lay in bed, and when I needed something, I would like call out for them, and they would not respond. Let me back this up just a little bit. They end up hospitalizing me where they pretend they don't know what's happening. They're giving me all these blood thinners every day. They started giving me a medication called Diamox, which was a diuretic. And I basically could not take any pain relievers at all. Anytime that I would take any painkiller, pain reliever, a hydrocodone, anything like that, I would end up sick as a dog on the floor, throwing up. I remember when my ex took me, his name was Joe, when he took me from Ruby Memorial, from the big hospital that I was at, back to our little town, I remember on the way back, we stopped 2 different times for me to throw up. Like, I was having to throw up all over the road. I was having to throw up. I had him stop at a fucking car dealership where I opened the door and puked all over the front of this car dealership. Any store that we stopped at, puke, everything, every time the car stopped. It was really bad. It was really severe, and the pain that I was in, I couldn't take medication for. If I took medication, I'd get even sicker. And I don't know if that was because they were doing something to the medication to make it to where I couldn't take it, or if that was just a natural reaction to them putting things in my brain. When I would go to lay down, the back of my head would hurt so bad, and it would feel wrong against any pillow at all. Like, I found myself not using pillows to lay down. I would just have to lay down and just let the back of my head just lay there. And it was just so uncomfortable. There was no way to get comfortable on a pillow, and there was no way to get comfortable without a pillow. It was absolutely excruciating and horrible. And I just thought to myself, like, I really wish that these guys would have been intelligent enough just to wait a few years until they had some smaller implant or microchip to place into a brain. Like, I just didn't understand why they were so stupid and careless with someone's brain as to just want to take and implant them with anything like that. But, like, I knew that I had haters, and I knew that people legitimately hated me, and they were like working against me, and that they were like constantly setting up all these nasty things to happen. And I was only 27 years old when this began, whenever I basically was Neuralinked. I was only 27. I had 2 kids who I loved very much. I had lived my whole life poor and in isolation, basically up until then. Sure, I had friends and I knew people and stuff, but all of those people were actually getting paid to make sure that I didn't hang out with anyone else and that I stayed isolated to just them. I developed this tinnitus type thing, which was like, it began that, like, instead of losing my hearing, I would begin to hear this like horrible high pitch, like ring, just this ring thing that would just happen out of the blue. It was so terrible. Like, I would get up to walk across the room and I'd be like mid stride in the middle of doing things and everything would just go black. I wouldn't be able to see or hear anything. It was so terrible. And I would just have to stand there and stare out and just wait for everything to come back. For the first time in my life, I couldn't look down like this because something is now wrong with the back of my head, making it to where whenever I look up, look down, look side to side, certain ways, like I don't have the same range of motion that I had before they did this to me. There's certain things that, especially right after it happened, I would pass out if I tried to do them. If I tried to lay down on my stomach, I would literally, circulation would be cut off to my brain and I would begin to pass out. If I raised my hands above my head, I would begin to pass out. Even if I was going to try to hurry up and put a thumbtack in the wall, by the time I actually got the thumbtack put in the wall, I would be passing out while I was standing up. I began to have to be very, very careful when I involved myself in adult extracurricular activities because it suddenly didn't take very much to be too rough because of how I had to hold my head a certain way constantly to make sure that I wasn't losing my vision, losing losing my circulation. Like I said, they started giving me Diamox, knowing that I didn't actually need it, pretending that they didn't know what was wrong with me. So not only did they commit the initial atrocity, but they then couldn't give me any pain relief, and they prescribed me a medication that wasn't going to help, that I didn't need. They would end up giving me a spinal tap, like I said, a lumbar puncture. I think that they gave me two spinal taps within 2 to 3 days of each other. They ended up creating an entrance in my spine that made it to where, while I was laying there, my spinal fluid was leaking out all over the bed that I was laying on, all over the gurney stretcher thing or whatever that I was laying on. They did that deliberately. They deliberately opened up my spinal cavity, my spinal column, so much that my spinal fluid was leaking out everywhere. And then they assigned a surgeon to give me something called a spinal blood patch. I ended up refusing the spinal blood patch. No, you're not just going to give me a third surgery to fake correct your first two surgeries and then me end up in worse condition that I'm already in. So yeah, I ended up going back to my crappy house where I, like I said, laid in bed, and once in a while I would actually need help or get hungry or whatever. So I would call on my brother and my boyfriend, who were able-bodied adult leeches, who were hanging out in the living room, watching my kids, who basically were the biggest victims of all of this. They would just ignore me whenever I would call out for help. My brother and boyfriend, I guess they thought that I was just going to die. So they thought that if they just ignored me, that I would just die. But I wasn't just going to die. So I would literally have to get on my hands and knees and crawl into the bathroom, where I had to clean the fucking whole floor and everything by myself, because I was going to have to live on my bathroom floor down by my toilet for about a week or two. I would crawl into the kitchen. I would make my own food and take it back into the bedroom for myself. And I very slowly but surely began to nurse myself back to health on my own. While I was in your shitty hospitals, you guys chose to ignore me and treat me like trash. No one would help me brush my hair or wash my hair or take showers or anything. No one helped me with anything. They would complain and yell at me if I didn't pee in this hat. They, for some reason, thought that they needed to see how much I was peeing every single day. It was the only thing they were concerned with. They were not concerned with helping me get cleaned up. Like I said, they weren't concerned with helping me with any of my hygienic needs or anything like that. They were purely focused on just being trash. They were shooting me up all the time with blood thinners that I didn't need. I've never needed blood thinners in my whole life. They came in and asked me if I had herpes in front of everyone, wondering if I had Addison's disease. They said, "We don't know if you have Addison's disease or not." So they asked me if I had herpes in front of everyone. Doctors, nurses, my family, everyone. Yeah, they just let me lay in a puddle of my own cerebrospinal fluid for about 3 days. Before they did this to me, my kids had actually just started school. And I was actually in a really good place mentally, physically, spiritually, as far as what I had to work with. Okay. I was walking my kids to school and back every day. We'd started out on a really good, in a really good way that year. They were doing great. I was doing great. I was enjoying walking them back and forth from school. I was enjoying helping them with school, with their schoolwork, with their homework, all of that. we started out really great and we were doing really great. It was actually the first year that we were actually doing that great. And I just found out I was going to be moving to a bigger apartment. It was kind of a really cool big deal. And then they did that to us. And then I began to have a really hard time walking my kids to school and back, which was only 2 blocks away. I began to have to use a cane to walk my children to school and back at the age of 27. At the age of 27, I suddenly had an invisibility. I'm sorry. At the age of 27, I suddenly had an invisible disability. No one else could see it, feel it, diagnose it, or anything. It was just for me to suffer with by myself and to figure out how to overcome on my own. I was pretty sure that I had been illegally, secretly Neuralinked, and for all I knew, I was going to be the first person or one of the first people to ever have to overcome such severe treatment and such severe illegal medical, such a severe medical crime, basically. I basically realized I might be one of the first people to have to overcome something like this on their own. And that basically the whole world was going to be against me. I didn't know what I had done actually to deserve being treated so badly along the way, and for mine and my children's lives to be sabotaged like that. But I accepted that it was something that was happening nevertheless. My children went from being really happy, which they really deserved. They really needed a mom who was upbeat and capable for them. They went from being really happy to having to live in the same house with one of my kids' dads, who's a piece of shit, and my brother, who's not really that great either, while their mom was bedridden. And so now they've just got people around them who are just going to ignore them and treat them like trash and not help them and treat them like they're burdensome. And so the quality of life for my children and I fell drastically. And it basically, I just had to adjust to that and just had to try to fucking, yeah, it was a really terrible chapter of my life that basically no one knows about. Except for the people who did it to me and the people who are trying to keep it a secret. It's been absolutely terrible. This is not the full story. I'm going to end this part of it here, and I'm going to go smoke a fatty. Continuing with my Neuralink story, the back of my head itched, and it has never stopped. Back then, I would make a suggestion, which was that because I was having so much trouble with it, that maybe I cut it short, buzz cut it in the back. And I would ask people to buzz cut it for me, and I would tell them about what pain I was in. And I'd be like, hey, let's cut my hair and, let's take pictures or videos, or give me some mirrors so that I can take a look at least the surface. It did cross my mind that they had basically done a surgery so quickly and not cared really what condition the incision was in afterwards, and that any kind of surgical incision may have become infected, or it may have some kind of almost fungal infection may have begun to develop around that area. And I just thought, like, maybe if I could get that haircut short and start applying some Neosporin to the area on a regular basis, get some air to the area. I even suggested to people, like, hey, maybe it's just something simple like psoriasis or eczema, and all it would take is some medication, and I wouldn't be in this, like, incredible pain and discomfort all the time. And any suggestions that I would make regarding cutting my hair down, looking at the back of my head, having other people look at the back of my head, or, applying medication to it, or anything like that, or even just cutting my hair for the relief, people would just completely fall silent when I would make any of these when I give them any of these ideas. When I would make any of these suggestions, basically. Which leads me to how I kind of set them up in a similar way about my eye. Well, not set them up, but sort of use the same thing to kind of like set them up to see how they would react if I would suggest anything about wearing an eye patch. So at the same time that I'm complaining about this pain in the back of my head, that it itches so bad, is there any way that we can do anything? This is the only way that I could think of to maybe provide some relief, is if we cut the hair. I mean, this had been going on for months, and other people around me in 2 different locations were listening to me make these complaints and literally be in absolute despair and misery. It was no joke. I mean, I was in and out of the hospitals. I was having to go visit neurologists and ophthalmologists. It was extra traveling time, effort, everything that other people didn't want to pay for and I could not afford. It was medications that I could not afford that other people were having to help me with that I didn't actually need. Literally, like, the state insurance paid for all of these different people to lie to me and to play in my face, including the eye doctor that I knew, who wanted to pretend that he couldn't show me the photos that he had taken inside of my eye, which he claimed were only photos of a swollen optic nerve, and I'll get into that in a little bit too. And your head being itchy is kind of like a gross, weird thing. And it really sucks to constantly be scratching at the back of your head in every different circumstance that you're in. Like, no matter what's going on, no matter what's happening, I, at some point, am going to have to reach back and scratch the back of my head and make it look like I have lice or scabies or something weird like that. Within the last year, I was finally able to get people to cut it short for me. The first person made sure that it was all hacked up and terrible looking. He even made sure, as he was shaving the back of my head, to leave a patch over where the surgical incision would have been. And he made sure that whenever he took a picture of the back of my head, he just did such a terrible job. Like, no one would have ever done that terrible of a job unless it was quite deliberate. He's just like, oh, look what I did to you. But you could see that there were patches, these weird red patches all over the back of my head. And I was really upset with the dude. I was so upset with him for doing that. I took a picture of his mom's license plate and everything. Just a super retarded trafficker dude that they sent to do that, basically, and then some. It took me several months before I could finally get my haircut again a little bit lower, but this time I didn't even ask the dude to take pictures of it and stuff. I just got him to cut it down just for the relief of it. And, back when I was in California and just within the last couple weeks, I was able to, apply antibiotic ointment to it to see if that would help with the itch at all. And it actually did help with the itch, which is really surprising. Like, it still itches, it's still terrible. And it even started kind of almost like itching in a different place since I started to do that. But it's at least not as just terrible as it's been forever. And I think there might have been once or twice that I had my head shaved aside from this, but I do remember other times applying like Neosporin or antibiotics and stuff, or antibiotic ointment to the back of my head to see if that would improve the situation. And I don't know whether or not it did back then. Apparently not well enough, because I was still going through it. And it does seem like there's just like an itch that will never go away, but there was something going on topically with my skin. And if someone would have just simply been kind enough to go ahead and shave it down back there, apply ointment, whatever. Obviously, I wasn't going to be able to be like, oh, you guys did something to me. Even if you could literally see a incision directly down, even back then and even now, to take a picture and post something like that online and try to tell people or show people, like, not no one, but people really don't believe you or want to see anyways. Like, if I could get my hair cut well enough back there and have pictures or a video taken of what it looks like from the outside, I would totally do that and let somebody else do that. But it's been about a year since I threw a fit online, and I was like, I'm going to get my hair cut and I'm going to take a picture of this and show everybody the scarring and the whatever, which it's actually like a weird blotching or whatever. I'm not really sure what the fuck's going on back there. And so they basically had that guy do that to me and then just act like a complete dummy and just act like just complete jerk to me. And then they made it to where like a lot of really terrible things happened all at once, which is something that they do whenever they're trying to like retaliate against me or punish me or whatever, or just make things harder for me, more difficult. And apparently I'm on some special list of people who need to be gotten rid of. And one of the main reasons why is because we were implanted with all of this technology, and the people responsible for it don't want to have to, be, brought to justice in any way. And they also don't want to have to pay out. A lot of them don't think that they could ever be brought to justice. That's a lot of them, that to them that's not even an option, because we're talking about people who are billionaires or people who work for billionaires, companies that are owned by billionaires, things like that. So they don't think that justice or law could ever happen to them. It's more so a matter of them being a little bit prideful about their reputations and them not wanting to come off of any money. Because, I mean, I wouldn't sign any non-disclosure agreement and just accept funds in exchange for what these people did, destroying my whole life and then sending people after me afterwards to try to cover it up. There's no amount of money that they'll be able to pay me to make any of that right. But there are people out there who would and probably have already signed non-disclosure agreements relating to these neural monitoring implants and other, implants that, or there are a lot of people who would just like settle out of court, and they wouldn't want to make a big thing out of it. They wouldn't want trials. They wouldn't want to have to go through any of that kind of thing. Simultaneously, there are a lot of people who you could have paid to begin with to be able to do these kinds of things to them. It's like double, triple, quadruple jeopardy, not only to be treated like that, but then also to be treated even worse afterwards, and then for people to, just I'll get into what happened after all of this. I really am just trying to focus on the initial neurolinking and for now, and how that affected me. All right, yeah. So anyways, the itching has been really relentless and terrible, and I'll never let you guys off the hook about that. It's really bad. Sometimes I would think that the itching was like healing, like something healing back there, or like something constantly trying to heal, but it couldn't, or something like that. All right, so as far as the eye was concerned, this was about the first time that I began to consider that I could have an eye camera. And I thought to myself, like, how could I almost kind of like set people up to give themselves away in a lot of these situations that I would be in. But very specifically, because they were so dumb about me, my suggestion about shaving the back of my head, I... after so many months of being like, my eye hurts, and people being like, man, your eye's really swollen. You look like your eye's about to pop out of your head. I was finally like, I feel a lot of relief. I'd tell these people like, I feel a lot of relief whenever I cover my eye for even just 10, 20, 30 minutes, an hour a day. Like, what do you guys think? Do you think that I could just like go get a cheap eye patch and maybe just start covering my eye for a little while every day whenever it starts to hurt really bad and swell out like that? Like maybe I could just cover it and provide it some relief. And, you would think that people who were around someone who was showing signs of terminal illness, who was suffering greatly and had to, continually visit specialists, that if they were complaining about a pain in their eye and there was nothing that you could do for them, all of the doctors, they just pretended that it was all just, some pseudotumor cerebri, an imaginary tumor, a false tumor, and there's nothing to see here. And, you can only give me shitty medication. There's no way to relieve the pain. Why not put an eye patch on for a little while here and there if I was really in that pain, and just, alternate eyes here and there. And each and every one of them would be like, oh God, no, you can't cover your eye. You should never use an eye patch. The only reason why anyone would ever use an eye patch is if their eye was missing. Oh, if you put an eye patch on, it'll make you go blind. It'll only make things worse. So it was like overnight, suddenly parts of my body were affected that I couldn't actually see for myself, look into and see myself, or look back at with my own eyes and see myself. And I was, making these suggestions to bring relief to myself in this situation, and no one could handle either of those options or ideas. While I was in the hospital, they had all of these medical students. They told me that they were medical students, and it was like between 20 and 50 people. And they had me laid up in bed, pretending they didn't know what was wrong with me. And they told all of these people that I had idiopathic intracranial hypertension, or pseudotumor cerebri, and that they were all going to take these flashlights and look into my pupil in through my eye. They claimed that they were all going to be looking in the back of my eye at my optic nerve to see papilledema, which is at least a temporary disorder that is characterized by swelling of the optic nerves. It is the result of too much pressure against the optic nerves. And so they would have all of these people, like 30 to 50 people all at once, like one at a time. They would come and look into my eyeball. And you know what? For the life of me, I can't remember which eye they were looking in, but I really wish that I could. But they were coming and looking into my eyeball, flashing these flashlights into my eye, looking into my fucking eyeball. And they were all so fascinated by what they said was swelling. So fascinated by swelling. Additionally, I was sent to an ophthalmologist who took photographs of the inside of my eye. And he claimed that he was taking photos of papilledema or optic swelling. And I did not believe him. I did not believe that everyone was just looking into my eye and that it was so important for them to look into the back of my eye just to see redness and swelling and swollen blood vessels. That didn't really make that much sense to me. So I asked the guy, I was like, since it's so fascinating, is there any way that I could see the photographs that you took of the inside of my eye? And they just kind of acted like little stumbly stuttery, like they didn't really know how to respond to that question. And they kind of acted like that sure I would be able to see them if I just came in and signed for them and all this. When I was about 11 years old, I got hit by a car. It was also something that was a deliberate setup. This is all linked together with like a severe lifetime of abuses that no one is answering for. I can remember when they were giving me x-rays whenever I was a kid, that I was actually able to look over and watch these x-rays come up, and the doctors, nurses, and myself were all able to look at these x-rays. And whenever this weird Neuralink event thing happened, it was suddenly a secret for me to see my own x-rays. Suddenly, no one could show me anything. No one could show me the back of my head. No one could show me the inside of my own eye. No one could show me any of the x-rays. For the first time ever, I wasn't allowed to see my own x-rays or to understand the full scope of my own medical situation. Yeah, the state literally and probably the whole federal government paid for me and pays for pretty much everyone to be left in the dark about their own medical everything. Like, you think you know. At some point, I actually would see an x-ray of my skull. And it was an x-ray that was given to me by a chiropractor. There was a chiropractor in town who would, as you left, it was about $100 to visit the dude. And as you left, he would print out an x-ray of your spinal column, the back of your head and neck. It was an image, a complete image of my skull and everything. You could see my little fillings and stuff in there, and you could see that there was something in my eye and that there was something going on in the back of my skull. But I didn't look too deeply into it because I'm not sure why, but I just didn't look that hard into it. But I remember that the person who took me to the chiropractor, that he was like, look at your x-ray. And he kept trying to get me to look at my eye. He was like, look at this. Don't you see this? You don't see this thing? And I was just like, oh, just ignore that and stuff. Because honest to God, like, to me, I felt like that my own nation had made a terrible mistake, a terrible and embarrassing mistake, that they would undoubtedly not want people to know about. And to me, I loved my country so much that I would not have wanted anyone to know that they ever made a single mistake. And I wanted to give them time to straighten it up and to act right. But I have basically given them the time to do that, and they haven't done that yet. So it's really sad, because it's like I loved them so much more than they loved me. I loved my nation and my government so much more than they loved me. But we're not going to get into that right now. The pressure in my head and in my skull and in my eyes was so severe, you guys. It was so bad. It was literally like drowning all the time, like being really far under the water and having that kind of pressure on everything. It was so terrible. And one of the only ways that I could find relief was through cannabis. And the cannabis did begin to take the pressure off of my eyes, off of, intracranially. The only thing that I really had to watch when it came to the pot was, goofy accidents, issues with decision making at the time, and my blood pressure. Blood pressure was because of the intracranial tension, and a number of other things. I had developed this issue called tachycardia, and that was huge. It was a huge part of it, this tachycardia. If you don't know what that is, you're just going to have to look it up, because I don't have the definition out in front of me for you right now. But tachycardia, papilledema, tinnitus. I mean, it was all just so terrible and so severe. And I was just treated like a stupid little guinea pig throughout the whole process. No one cared about the lack of information that I had about myself, or that I was in pain, or anything. There was this painful pulsating that was happening in my eyes, like at the same time that I could hear this whoosh, 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 whoosh in my ears, I could also see it, this pulse in my eyes, this whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And as I could watch that there was an issue with the blood pressure in my eyeballs. I mean, it was some serious business, you guys. And if you've made it this far through my story, I thank you so much for listening, and I'm still not done yet. And peace. All right. So the next part of this story is monkeys and turtles. And basically, I remember that back then, when I was trying to learn about Neuralink and the names associated with it, I was reading about how monkeys were being mistreated. And this was in 2010. This would have been probably August, September, somewhere around there. August, September, October, something like that. In 2010, thereabouts. Somewhere in there. And I guess that there had been like this team of employees, and they were instructed to Neuralink these poor little monkeys. And they were like talking about the detriment that was being done to the monkeys and how the monkeys were suffering. And they almost talked about Musk like he was that mad scientist off that movie Ferngully who was like, "Give me another animal. I need another animal," you know? And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe they do this to monkeys too, you know? And, you know, how terrible. I just thought, oh God, they let this crazy mad scientist, like psycho dude, just get a hold of, regular American civilians and stuff. And so I gathered that, this Elon Musk bailer and this Neuralink company or whatever must be like working with the government or whatever to do, as far as like human experiments went, and that the human experiments were, of course, now, kind of melded with technology. Is melded? Is that the phrase that I'm looking for? You can tell a lot about a person by the way that they treat animals. And a person can both treat animals too well and not well enough. And if a person treats an animal badly enough, especially, you can judge by that they would probably treat a human quite the same way and potentially worse. And I do wonder if any of that information has been made public. Like, what exactly were they doing to these monkeys? Like, what were they instructed to do to the monkeys? And, have these people been checked up on or interviewed? Are they still alive? Were they Neuralinked for speaking up about it? Like, so at this point, it's not just human rights, but it's also already been an animal rights issue, and that's prior to 2010. And, the only way that I had access to that information as someone who was kept very deliberately isolated was just looking it up online. It was just the free information that I could gather from, a Google search engine, and I anticipate that you can do the same. And turtles leads me to the subject of access to the eye camera that I was given. And now, let me also say this, that there's different neural monitoring technologies, or whatever. I'm a dork. And then there were different time frames, eras, wherein those that technology was used. So it could be that I had neural monitoring and video technology implanted or injected in some way or another, and was microchipped and all that before 2010, and that everything just upgraded in a way to that technology for a second, and then however many years later it would upgrade into or even around the time it could have been something called that they're calling the AI kill shot, And that, I'm not sure if that was given to me when I was a kid, or, if that's something that's more recent. I'm 40 years old, so the people who are responsible for creating those things, anyways, access to my point of view, or to these eye cameras, was passed around or sold to different buyers. In addition to that, the minds in which this technology was implanted and injected were now able to be hacked, making it to where people could hack the mind and the eye of someone in another country. And then something else began to happen, or had been happening in my situation the entire time, which was a targeting issue. But after having the eye implant and having, around the range of time that I think that they would have given me an eye camera, or at least a better one, or one to begin with anyways, whatever. That was kind of around the time when people started to get way nastier to me, and things started to get a lot worse. And what had happened was the people who had access to my eye camera, they were actually sending others to do things to me and around me. And through this Neuralink device, they were able to, in some ways, like, read thoughts. And what I'm told, how I'm told that they're doing it, like, I'm told that they can see a person's internal dialogue written like as it would be on a screen. Now, somehow, this AI kill shot stuff that they're talking about, it turns people into a human battery, is what they call it. And I'll have to make a separate video about that entirely, but I'm incorporating it into this one at this point because I want for people to grasp the concept of... Alright, so I guess it became that the eye camera footage was sold to various other individuals and companies and agencies, and that even my family had access to my eye camera. And from the sounds of things, everyone has a device that they can all, get on, and it links up to this, what's described to me as this little tiny teardrop, I'll just say teardrop shaped camera that she describes as being able to swim up to the islands and see out, to see everything that, you're able to see. And I've heard that people can almost do something like a conference call, and all of them even be able to talk and interact and, make fun of you all at the same time. I've been told and heard that they also place bets against you, or surrounding different things that they have set up around you in your life. So the people around me started to get real sneakerson, and they started to, set up and orchestrate different messed up things. They would like set things up to try to get me suspicious and to try to get me to like bust in, like try to bust people and stuff like that. That was one of the things that they would do, and I guess they would watch through the my eye camera thing, and like were probably actually committing those atrocities and crimes and doing those activities and stuff like that I was worried about. They would basically do those kinds of things or act like they were doing those kinds of things and set it up for me to worry about it and then to try to like catch them doing it or whatever. And then they would set it up to where I would never catch them doing anything, and then they could turn around and everybody just treat me like I was crazy and stuff like that, even though they were all just doing like, you know, some really insane stuff. I would say definitely looking back that people were for sure able to get away with way more than they would have gotten away with someone who didn't have the same surveillance issues, and they were able to definitely treat me with a great deal more disregard. I know that a lot of the people involved in the implants and injections, and especially the eye camera stuff and the Neuralink stuff, are probably gay. Just because I know that people work together to send dudes to me, like, constantly. That I feel like there's very little to no interest in females behind the veil of the people who are actually watching. And then I'd say within the following 5 years after that, not very long after that, that I noticed that there was something in my ear, canal, and it's just like this lump, like about the size of a grain of rice or smaller, sitting in my ear canal. And, you know, at first it was really swollen and horrible, and I had to like make an appointment to have it seen and potentially removed. And I actually did end up going in there a couple times, and the surgeon, when I finally did sit down and allow her to look at it, she said that it was neither a tumor or a cyst, and that she was not allowed to operate on it, and she was really rude to me and just kind of like made me leave, didn't explain any of it, just was super rude. But it was super, super painful. It made me wonder if I'd been like given some kind of weird microchip in my ear, because that would be one more place yet again that I wouldn't be able to just, you know, take my eye out and, you know, look in there for myself and see what it is, or, you know, remove it for myself. I would have to like set up, you know, camera stuff and all, you know, all this stuff in order to, or, you know, I would have to, you know, set some stuff up in order to see in my ear, or, you know, have like some, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. That actually swelled up really bad. It swelled up so bad that it cut off my ear canal entirely, and it was still swelling out and stuff. I ended up going over to one of my neighbor's houses, where I asked her to pour peroxide into my ear. And I just let that peroxide fizzle and bubble and everything, and we were just letting that stuff just pour out of my ear. Eventually, some pretty nasty stuff came out of it, but it still remains like there's a little tiny grain of something in there. It does kind of remind me of the RFID chip stuff. And it, you can definitely tell still, but it doesn't like bother me like it once did. It's a little bit achy if I start to pay attention to it, but I don't really notice it anymore. I would say that it was incredibly painful and debilitating for at least the first month. Easily the first month. I can't really remember beyond that, but. And I guess this all sort of, fed into some weird, incensey, fetishes and things like that, that have to do with, family abuses without being too graphic. So people were able to sell access, well, Elon Musk, I guess, was able to sell access of this eye camera to different world leaders, different people, kings and presidents of things. Most def, the CIA has access to it. I would say that anyone who has any of those kind of eye cameras, that their nation and potentially other nations' intelligence agencies definitely have access to that. One of the really bad things that they would do would be to set things up for me to worry about my kids. They would set things up for me to worry that my kids were being like hurt or abused in secret, and then set me up to try to find out or to question people or to be freaked out or whatever. And another sad thing to go along with that is that they would eventually teach my kids to do the same abusive thing that they were doing. You know what I mean? And be like, your mom's got a camera in her eye, and you just got to act like this and that to her, and she's also been Neuralinked, so you got to really put her through it, you know what I mean? If you don't really put her through it, then they're going to be able to tell. So it's like, I guess in addition to having access to my eye camera footage, they also have access to some of my biological and physiological my bio status. Not only do they have access to be able to read different processes occurring within me, but I am understanding that they also have had the ability to influence and even control the minds and the behaviors and actions of others. I've heard that people do have the ability to overcome that. I've heard that it sometimes takes a little while. One microchip that they talk about, that they say that they gave everyone, is one that causes a person to lean more towards lust, and that through certain spiritual practices and through other concentrated practices, that a person can learn to overcome that. All right, and so it would be that week after week, month after month, year after year, basically anybody who I was around, anyone who I dated especially, or anybody who I hung out with for any period of time, it was just people would kind of act sketched out. They would kind of act like there was something going on behind the scenes. They would make it obvious. There was even times that people admitted that they had contracts on me. And a contract isn't necessarily always to get rid of somebody. Sometimes there's contracts to do other things, and one of those things is called energy harvesting, which ties back into this AI kill shot stuff, or that's its nickname. And it's what I was talking about before. It turns a person into like a human battery. Okay. So there's certain different things that that they can do to get energy out of a person. And this is where the video cut off before the last video. Whenever I was telling you guys, I was trying to say that I was letting you know about all of this different technology along with the Neuralink technology, because I would like for you to understand how all of these different technologies, when combined together, become like the ultimate, I almost said ultimate death trap for someone. And it's really, truly sad to me that someone would have access to all of that money, all of that support, all of that technology, and have, such an incredible mind, but that they would choose to use it to be invasive to others. And I know that I said in one of my former videos that back in the day when I knew that they had implanted me, that I wished that they had waited a few years until they had some simpler, smaller microchip and used that instead. But the truth is that the blood-brain barrier should really not be crossed. It shouldn't be damaged in any way. Like, why would you do that? And the brain should never be intruded upon. It should never be punctured. It should never be damaged. I would even go so far as to say that unless it is to benefit someone, that the skull itself should never be tampered with or broken or, chiseled, punctured. Unless immediate pressure is needed to, I don't know. So I just wanted to clear that up, that it's not okay to be invasive into someone's skull, especially without their knowledge, their permission, anything like that. And all right, so, and a lot of them have learned how to incorporate their access to eye footage. They've learned how to incorporate it with their own weird religious agendas. And so when it came to, I guess, the Luciferians and certain others who disagree with my personal religion, they were setting up all manner of things and trying to orchestrate all kinds of things. And humiliation rituals has been huge for all of these people, and witchcraft and all that. That's all the sort of stuff that I've had to deal with and put up with and combat while I've been out here, or even when I was, especially whenever I was forced to just be in isolation. They're literally like isolating my kids and I, and financially controlling us, and while they were summoning demons collectively as covens and practitioners, they were literally, I'm told, they were summoning demons, and I actually did experience the effects of that. It's some weird CIA stuff, yes, I know. Also, when you've been meddled with technologically, and people can read what's going on with you physiologically, they can tell when you're asleep and when you're awake. And because I was just this technological guinea pig that people were told that they could just do whatever they wanted to, they ended up selling access, or I'm told that they actually took access from my skull and put it on the dark web for people to view for some period of time, that it was on the dark web. And they also put hidden cameras all throughout my apartments outside of me, and it became an all-around science experiment. And with what footage was captured of intimate moments or nudity or, bathroom, shower, things like that would be sold. And it was actually at some point live streamed to OnlyFans, and the money went to family court employees and other officials to keep me alone and single in an apartment by myself for 2.5 years. And it would get, I guess, boring for all of these people watching, especially the wealthier ones that are that think that they need a little bit more entertainment than they really do. They were paying for they would pay for me to get messed with so badly that I would basically lose my jobs, be made homeless, just have a hard time all the way around. But they would prefer me to be homeless, and they would prefer me to not have any money and to not have any kind of support network, so that they can basically see how I react and respond and do things. And they want to kind of see me in distress and put me in distress and keep me in real high stress situations. And they also want to be able to see what it's like on the very lowest end of things, the lowest of the low ghetto places and stuff like that. And I have ended up walking into a lot of weird, dark, real ghetto places, and I've heard that they prefer for things to be on edge and rough, and they especially, I'm told, pay for access to eye footage or the point of view from people who are prostitutes, people who are drug dealers, people who are homeless. They would rather see the things that they don't have access to as millionaires, billionaires. They would rather see people, shooting up and selling themselves and just being desperate and, cutting out drugs and things like that. That's what they want to see, and that's what they pay to see. And if you don't want to play that game and you're just trying to raise your kids, it becomes a serious problem. I would go through periods of time where I would kind of try my hardest to forget about the Neuralinking and the whole eye camera possibility, and the possibility of there being, 1 million viewers watching right alongside me. I tried my hardest to kind of forget about that possibility sometimes and just do what I would do anyways. But I'll tell you, I really never did lose the feeling like I was being watched. That was a feeling that followed me around constantly. There were times that I bought surveillance equipment and tried to set things up, and that there were times that I even used phones and different dash cams and weird little hidden cameras and stuff to try to film what different things that might have been going on at different times that I was suspicious. And every single time that I would return to any of those cameras to try to review the footage, it would seem that everything would have been deleted, and it would just be a little bit of some film, and then it would just cut off. Every single time that I tried to film anything or protect myself or have surveillance in any way. It was all just constantly messed with. Someone would go back and mess with it every time that I fell asleep. It was like somebody would mess with it, whether there was anyone there or not. So that was a really bizarre thing that kept happening that was super horrible. I did at one point almost kind of like trick my managers into letting me see some footage, and that was the one and only time that I saw someone who I think was my twin sister or a copycat, someone who they were dressing up to look exactly like me, or a twin. The weather's beginning to turn here in West by God, Virginia, and so the gnats are kind of just all over the place. And I have so much more to tell you, but before I allow this to be any longer, I will go ahead and give it a rest and upload this, and then I will make the next pod. All right, peace. All right, so I guess this is going to be my part 6. And I think that I'm just going to make this mostly about some other things that I went through after their stupid little secret surgery, and what semblance of a recovery process would have looked like after this experience. And I don't have my tripod right now, and I'm not really ready. So it's just gonna be, an audio thing. And this is all really, really important to me. Okay. So it's like, it's not necessarily that it's work that I should have already done by making the videos and presenting them to the public, but it's that because I've already begun this process, I don't want to slack off too much and let there be too much time in between videos and finishing the whole thing, because it does matter a great deal to me, and it's basically been, one aspect of madness that has controlled my life. Groups of people that have gone out of their way to do really heinous and terrible things in my life. And I, whether it makes me look crazy or not, I want to get that information out there, because I know that when people hear it, they'll be able to judge for themselves, and no one will be able to call me crazy anymore. And even if they do, I don't care, because I've literally had to deal with absolute hell. It won't matter how much explaining I do or anyone else does. Even if someone makes a movie or a book is written about it, people will still never actually understand how bad this was. All right, so I'm going to take you back to directly afterwards, and after I basically get out of the hospitals and they all pretend that they don't know what's happening to me and that they can't help, which they really can't help. I shouldn't say that was pretending, but I just slept a lot. Like, it used to be a lifestyle of me being very active with my young children, as any young mother would be and would need to be. And I basically afterwards would begin to spend a lot of time in bed. And months would go by, and it would just be this drowsy, terrible feeling that would come over me, and I would just be in bed. And the pain would also kind of put me down, and I would notice that I would have no energy. My energy levels had just completely dropped. And basically, the longer that I spent laying down, the more that my body would just get used to just laying there. And so the entire event rendered me debilitated. Basically, for the most part, they had me down. I was practically disabled. Now, at the time that this happened, a person was not able to get Social Security for pseudotumor cerebri or idiopathic intracranial hypertension, which was the only thing that they could diagnose me with. That was the only thing that they could say was, yeah, there's pressure, in your eyes and around your brain, but we're going to pretend that we don't know why. It was basically the diagnosis. And I can't remember if I touched base on this in the last video or not, that I would take their Diamox for a very long time. We really couldn't afford it. I did have insurance, but I remember there being a couple times that there was either a problem with the insurance or that, whatever had happened, we ended up having to pay for that medication. And then, after all this time, it being confirmed that I really didn't need that medication. I could tell at the time that I didn't need it because of how just deathly sick it was making me. And of course, it's not going to make you that sick if you actually need it. But they just treated me like I was just this dumb hillbilly from West Virginia that they could do anything to. And I wasn't even from West Virginia. Like, I'm from Amarillo, Texas. I actually had a really decent education growing up. And my education was probably made even better by the fact that I would move back and forth between these states and have the experience of different schools, different cultures. That might sound odd, but, sure, I had kids when I was young, but that didn't mean I was stupid. That didn't mean that I'd never had an education before that. And in my personal situation, I've already experienced a lifetime of being treated like I'm stupid. I mean, I was a child and my parents would laugh in my face and laugh about how, then make fun of me. So this has been it's been a long, drawn out, dragged out insult to my intelligence all the way around. Growing up, having to get over or try to get over, your own family treating you in such a humiliating way and such an abusive way on a regular basis. And then all of a sudden now you have to experience literal other government employees and medical professionals and all of these other people treating you like you're a complete dumbass, literally the same way my parents did. Sorry to get a little personal there, but it's exactly what happened. And my family was still actively controlling my life, both from a distance and from close by when I was 27 years old and when this happened. It was actually my family who, I believe, signed me up to be put through these different tech and medical experiments. And that has something to do with them trying to get me out of the way of inheritance and trust funds and stocks, bonds, properties, assets like that. Okay, so I ended up getting put on these lists. So anyways, I'll lay there like that. I sleep and I sleep and I sleep, and I just sleep so much I can't believe that I'm sleeping like this. Like, the healing that my body and everything actually had to go through, and just how long that actually took, that I wasn't sure I was ever going to be able to get up and actually live a normal life again and be active with my children ever again. And my brother and my boyfriend at the time, they definitely didn't think that there was any chance of me getting up and being active with my kids again, or maybe they just had wishful thinking that I wouldn't. And I do know that the people who were around me in my life who were being contracted or paid or given incentive to go along with all of this, that they themselves were also traumatized and bothered by what was happening. Sure, there might have been some of them that had like nasty, foul intentions and everything, but I will tell you that I do believe that a couple of these people did kind of in their own way, like, were grossed out, that they were grossed out and traumatized by what was going on, kind of in secret. I'm going to say that it would take at least another 5 years or so before I was able to really fully do things like reach up and put tacks in the wall and, you know, things like that, you know, hang up a set of curtains, you know, things that involved reaching above the head, which, you know, as human beings, we actually need to do sometimes. You know, we can't just lose our range of motion in any direction. That's terrible. It's absolutely terrible to me that you are allowed to even implant anything that would cause someone to lose their range of motion. Like, you're presenting this, your whole sales pitch behind this is that you're going to help people to be able to walk again, help the paralyzed and all this. But, you know, the truth about the implant that you have is that it actually causes a person to lose range of motion and to, you know, lose their hand-eye coordination and all manner of things. It actually takes, it's a process of healing from the device itself to be able to like actually function normally again. It takes years and years. I would say that it's taken every bit of 10 and 15 years to really get over it, or, you know what I mean, as far as a person is going to be able to have the range of motion for the most part that I had before I was 27, to be able to look from left to right like normal people, you know, to be able to spin my head around, and the jumping up and down and the standing up quickly and moving across the room quickly. These are all things that I would not have been able to do 15 years ago. I would have fallen over and basically died and came back to life with my eyes open if I would have tried to move around like I do now 15 years ago. And now especially, I was trafficked technically by the Biden and Trump administration over the last couple of years. So I was basically like pushed out onto the streets. And by trafficked, I do not mean that adult offenses were committed against me. Now, that has been part of it, but for the most part, I've been non-compliant in that way. And one of the reasons why has been because when towards the beginning of my trafficking experience, it seemed like the CIA or hackers or someone like that came up over my YouTube feed, and they specifically told me that I was being trafficked by law enforcement. And they told me to not use drugs and to not have intercourse with anyone. They told me not to get messed up. They told me a lot, okay? And they told me that people were going to had been trying to give me STDs, which that is going to tie into all of this later on. I will also say that the Neuralinking in 2010 definitely cut into any kind of intimate life that I had, any kind of bedroom life that a person has. This will interfere with that, most definitely. And, you know, when people find out that a brain chip that they think that they want so that they can control their phones with their minds and different things like that, you know, when they find out that they're not going to be able to have intimate relations the same way, because, I mean, how can you if there is something lodged in your brain, and you have to be careful with the motion of your skull and all of that. I mean, it does. I'm going to tell you right now, it has been a factor for me to have to hold my head a certain way. That has been a completely other pain in the butt issue that I have never brought up before. I've never really tried to talk to people about. Like, I have had to be like, hey, I have to be careful with my head. I didn't really tell people why, and they don't get it. So that's another reason. That's like another thing that has put a complete damper on anything like that, which is not something that I'm even focused on right now, because the Freemasons and my family sent so many people into my life, and Elon Musk behind this has also sent so many people into my life that I've actually had to stop dating, which is also something that I'll be talking about in the next videos, but I'm not quite there yet. I'm just starting to hit on these things. Basically, what I talk about from here on out is going to be even harder than the explanation of the getting Neuralinked. Just the event of them Neuralinking me, yes, that was serious. That was so severe and so bad. But what happens afterwards and what they actually use the tech for the following 15 years up until now, oh my God, you guys are not going to believe this. And it's all so bad. It's all so overwhelming and so difficult to talk about. But we are going to get to it. We are getting there. Like, I know there's not that many people watching these videos right now, and that it's probably only the people who don't want me to be making the videos, but I'm still sorry that I had left such a gap in time between video 5 and this part 6. I kind of gave myself a little bit of a break. I did want to write some things down, which I was able to accomplish, but I'm learning how to go from the written format of things, everything being a blueprint for me to look at and for others to read. I'm trying to go from being the writer to being the speaker. And from writing to video, you know what I mean? I'm trying to upgrade from 2D to 3D. And that has been like a really difficult process for me because I suffered amnesia for a little while. All of this Neuralinking and secretive crime and corruption and all this weirdness would eventually lead to people hurting me and others so badly that I would develop amnesia. And the amnesia would actually end up messing with my speech, my memory, of course, and a manner of other issues that I would face with that. But anyways, I was really tired for the longest time. I was just suddenly disabled. I was somebody who was always very careful not to get injured. I was a very careful driver. I was careful with my food preparation. I was just a very conscientious person, and it did bother me greatly to suddenly be disabled at 27 years old for no reason while I had 2 young children. It was really depressing. I became really depressed. I ended up cutting off a lot of my hair. I, to begin with, had over 2 foot of hair, 2 foot long hair. And I ended up just going right home afterwards and cutting nearly all of that off. And I could have made $1,000 selling that, but I didn't. it was really depressing to know that like I really didn't mean anything to people, like that no one was actually going to show up for me. Like I was just in a, and I spent that time in the hospital. I would spend a couple weeks in the hospital, and the people that showed up were the same people that were doing it, and no one aside from them showed up. I really loved my kids, and that was my life, just being a mom. That was the life that I had been basically put into, so that my family and others could isolate me and keep an eye on me and stuff like that. And so because I was isolated to just being with kids, they were my love. They were what I loved. And it was difficult for me to understand. Like I couldn't even grasp a world wherein other people didn't have the same love for kids and for my kids as I did. And sure, I was a crazy spastic mom. I was a yeller. I was this and that, but I loved my kids, dude. I mean, I really loved my kids. Like I would try to act all tough and stuff, and I would even go through like, being a dumbass and trying to toughen them up sometimes. But the truth was that I was a softie, and that was one thing that I people could really pull the wool over my eyes with my kids. I was really lenient with my kids. I was probably too lenient with my kids. And so this all really hurt me really deeply. I was secretly very emotional about it all. And maybe in some ways I am secretly a really emotional person. There seemed to be like a little bit of an online support network for people who had idiopathic intracranial hypertension, but it was just like the only thing that was really helping me was marijuana. And I wanted so desperately, whenever I would get on those little Facebook pages and stuff, like I would want to help those women. But the only thing that I knew to tell them to reach to was pot. And so it became stupid for me to even be on the page, because who wants to hear like, hey girls, I don't know what to do other than maybe we should stop using these smartphones and start smoking pot, because my smartphone would just hurt me so bad. And it would just like, I was given the smartphone at the same time that all of this stuff happened. And so to me, there was some correlation between the smartphone and, whatever implants or whatever sick things that they had done to me. And so to me, I thought that I was only going to be using the smartphone for temporarily for a short period of time, and that I was going to stop using it and go back to, the crappier flip phones and stuff like that or whatever, or just not use a cell phone anymore. And honestly, those were some smart thoughts. Those were probably the thoughts that I should have clung to be honest with you. Now, there are some advantages to being connected, internet-wise, which would end up not really revealing themselves until here recently. The women, just to be honest with you, on those support groups, they just seem to be like these whiny fat women, and they would just get on there and just complain, but there is no one on any of these groups helping any of these women, or you know what I mean? And if all I can say is smoke some weed, then what help am I? It's just pointless for me to even be in the group, because that's the only solution that I can come up with. And And then around me, I would also notice that like my family and my extended family, my boyfriend, all of them, like it was just like a I'm supposed to be sick thing. And instead of us focusing on how we can get better or coming up with some kind of plan or solution or like, some kind of system or process of how, what can we do to improve the quality of life for this person. Instead of anything like that happening, it was like everyone almost encouraging there being a disability or encouraging there being a sickness. And it was like I was just supposed to be sick like this. And that was just all there was to it. Like, everybody just acted like that was how it was. I was supposed to accept that. It was just supposed to be life, sick, taking this medication, this experimental medication, and just hoping that that would work someday. That's going to work out someday or whatever. And that's just like how I was expected to live my life day in and day out. Like now I have this illness and now I can't move around right. I can't even move my head. I can't lay down on my stomach. I can't stand up too fast. I've got all these issues now and I'm just supposed to just accept this. And now this is my whole life. Like it was just really difficult for me to just fall in line and to just be this disabled person who everybody wanted me to be or whatever. At the time, I did think back to all of the times that I wondered whether or not people were poisoning me, because I did go through a great long time in my teenage years and through my 20s, during which it seemed like people were deliberately poisoning me. And it seemed like there was a lot of sneaky kind of attacks like that going on. And then with this happening, it just strengthened my suspicions even more, basically, that someone, potentially even the government, had it out for me in some way. Like it was all really bizarre. And like you wouldn't want to allow yourself to have those thoughts. So I wasn't like really riding on, you know what I mean? I wasn't like super riding on those thoughts, but I'm not going to lie, like they definitely became the forefront. I was fully aware of what schizophrenia was because I had a grandfather who, he either really was schizophrenic or they were just collecting a check saying that he was schizophrenic. But I guess his issue was that he thought that people were after him or whatever. But honestly, after going through what I went through, I wondered if my grandpa was actually schizophrenic or if people really were after him. Because I can even remember my family saying that they themselves saw Social Security agents in the front yard, like watching the house and stuff like that. And like, that would have been bizarre back in the day. Like, are you sure they were Social Security agents? Like, I don't know. With the lack of information that the man probably had access to and just how weird things were. Like, things were weird back then. Things are weird now. Just because I have access to information doesn't mean that it's the proper information. So who's to say that people weren't after him? I mean, how can I be so sure? Because in the end, he would have technically been red-rummed by my grandmother, and my family would have known that she was doing it, and she would have collected money. And it does turn out that, federal agents and the government and all of this and, the military and everything end up being a part of my situation. So how do I know that they weren't a part of his as well? And he was also the one who was telling me stories about Mkultra and warning me about all of this when I was 7 years old. So it's like, I'm not sure that he wasn't a victim of all of this, while at the same time that I'm not sure he was a victim, that I have these people who are either real whistleblowers or pretend whistleblowers trying to say that my grandpa was one of the bad guys and that he actually had a life insurance policy on me too. But I'm not sure, and we'll get there. As you can see, this whole situation is very complicated. It's really difficult just to only tell you about the medical part of it, because it's more than just medical. It's literally my entire life, and what these stupid little silly implants and injections ended up doing was helping all of these criminals throughout the course of time in history. And all that I know about these companies, corporations, and billionaires is that they are serious criminals who are involved in like global crime, the worst crime anyone could possibly be involved in, and they're just allowed to do whatever they want. Like, this story goes from me being a sweet single mom, just living in Section 8 ghetto housing, trying to raise my kids, walking them to school every day. It turns into my kids being pulled into evil and crime behind my back, and me being shoved out onto the streets after over a decade of various tortures and criminality, and just, you wouldn't believe the things that they've done and gotten away with. It will even lead to them setting me up to be a witness to just the most atrocious crimes against humanity, how these women were set up to be unalived. I mean, just in the most just atrocious way, that ways that you have never ever read about or seen in movies. I mean, the people involved in this are just absolute criminals, and they are planning on doing to the rest of the nation the same thing that they did to me. In fact, they want the whole world to accept this tech that they have created, that they've engineered. They want to put a camera in everyone else's eyes. They want to brain chip everybody. They want to be able to read everyone's thoughts. They want to be able to go back and rewind your video to see if you're the one who done it. They want to know which direction you're looking and have you tracked all the time so that they can go into your house when you're away. It's almost like giving teenagers access to their own parents' eye camera and knowing how to sneak around their parents. Or giving an eye camera to a husband, an unfaithful husband, an abusive pedophile husband who can now use that device to then abuse his children whenever he wants. That is what this ends up turning into, you all. Oh, it gets way worse than that. It gets much worse. They end up setting me up to be a witness to these homicides, because they've all been desperately trying the whole time to try to make me incompetent, because they'd already dubbed me incompetent in court, and they'd been collecting these checks for me and all this. And see, that's another thing that I don't understand, is if you guys had me in paperwork saying that I was disabled and that I was laying up in bed, how is it that you guys have been able to just do all of this and say that you're doing it because someone said I was a prostitute and a drug addict? And that's another thing, is they say that a lot of these people who get cameras put in their eyes, that they're only doing it to the people who are homeless, they're drug addicts, they're prostitutes. We're going to get around to talking about this. And honestly, instead of some of them really being prostitutes, drug addicts, or homeless, that because those are some of the rules, that these people would be pushed out into the streets. Good American civilians who were hard workers and good parents, pushed out into the streets, made homeless, some of them forced into crime and all this, forced into drug addiction, their children taken from them, their properties and everything, all assets taken from them, so that people could watch them through their eyes and send other people to them to do things to them. It's a massive tech and medical trafficking network, and there's a lot of people working together to try to hide what's happened. It's absolutely disgusting. I know that this video that I just took you all over the place back and forth, but I'm just letting you know that it's a bizarre situation. It's a bizarre subject to try to explain. I'm going to do my best. Thank you so much if you're still listening.